A really good leader will want you to tell them what could go wrong. And an expert will tell you all the things that can go wrong. I just made a video about why I do or do not and when I assert my own expertise. And I talked about how I see the difference between my opinion and my published research. But the funny thing is, even in my published research and in any published research will tell you, here are the limitations, future directions, and what should be done moving forward. And this is part of why we don't elect and promote actual experts. Because part of what is rewarded among just office politics, unwritten rules, is coming across as very confident, especially for upper class white men, because everybody else has questioned. And this is kind of culturally shifted with the whole move fast and break things in Silicon Valley since the thousands. But usually a very seasoned leader wants to hear what could go wrong and what you will do in that case. That is called risk management. And a lot of the greats who climbed the ladder before the 2000s and outside of tech, and I'm not saying it's not in tech, I'm just saying the really famous ones we hear about, that's kind of been thrown out the window. And I think, there's also the connection with venture capital and all of that people are more risky with other people's money. This is a very important skill that I don't know how long it's going to take us to get back to this, but I do think it's going to be a basic we have to get back to, is risk management. One of the people I talk about in my book, every chapter has case studies on how my research on the unwritten rules applies in real life. In the chapter on being assertive but not too aggressive, that unwritten rule, I talk about Carmen Medina, who was the thought leader behind the U.S. intelligence agencies having Intellipedia, where they could share insight among themselves virtually, which was something they were very hesitant to do because of privacy concerns. But Intellipedia ended up saving a lot of lives, and Carmen Medina became very famous for it because she is who piloted that idea. And it was an idea that was shut down for a while and that she almost got fired over. And one of the reasons that she said she was almost fired and not taken seriously was that when she first pitched it, when she was much younger, she did not tell them what could go wrong. She only pitched the positives. And government agencies, while that was in the 2000s era, obviously if the internet's around, are much more cautious. Usually, remember, this is pre-2024. Much more cautious, especially intelligence agencies, about privacy. It's kind of their thing. Than a corporate startup, okay? They have to be. I don't know if you've noticed, there's kind of consequences when they're not. She said as she continued, she didn't lose her job. She did get demoted. She did have to find something else to do because she absolutely lost her shit and blew up on them. And she's very transparent about this, which is why I love her. She's a Puerto Rican woman who talks about, as a Puerto Rican woman, she could not do things like lose her cool. She did. And how she recovered from that was never giving up on the idea, gaining more expertise in the organization and in new technology and all that was evolving during the 2000s with the internet, and in learning how to express her ideas, showing she had thought through the risk and what she planned to do if they happened. That is risk management. That is, if you are trained in project management principles with PMI and related, that is a big part of project management, is foreseeing and anticipating what are the known risks and what are the unknown, and how are you going to budget and adjust, have a timeline adjustments for that. And once she started conveying those risks, they started taking her more seriously because she was also building expertise in new technology, and people had a few years to get used to the idea of the internet and what an intranet looks like, because Intellipedia isn't public for all of us to see. It is between the intelligence agencies. And yes, she doesn't talk about this as much, but there is also as a Puerto Rican woman, she's always going to be assumed that her ideas are not fully baked. No one's are. Right? But we do know there is the assumption, I really like the former Chipotle co-CEO, Monty Moran, but some of his advice is very white dude of just think the best of people and they'll think the best of you. I love the heart in that, Monty, but everyone else has to prove their credibility, right? He still did wonderful things at Chipotle. I still reference his work with my clients. I'm not shitting. It's just a bit rose-colored lenses, and it's a privilege, right? So that's what I really like about Carmen Medina's story is while she will sometimes hint at that, she doesn't explicitly talk about it, probably because she feels like she can't. I don't know. I have talked to her before, but we're not besties yet. I'm pretty sure she still lives in DC and I am moving back, so we could be. I don't know. But that has also been my personal experience. If I remember my second year of graduate school, working on a project with our director who who is very established and famous in our field of IO, which IO is very small. So I know like y'all, the average person on here is not going to know who, even what we are. So I'm not pretending that we're superstars and well known, but in my field, he's very well known. And I was intimidated, even though he's like the kindest, most humble man ever. And it was my first project with him. And I was just like, yeah, taking what absorbing as much as I could from him. And I'm raised in the South, like, yes, ma'am, no, sir. So like, respect your authority. And like, I was like, yes, yes, yes. And I realized over time, it was taking so long to start this project. And every time I met with him, it was a new spin on the project, a completely different methodology. And for like the first 4 times, I just went with it and was like, okay, I guess we're redoing everything. It was like finally the 5th time that I was like, no, that would not address our question. And we already thought through this because of this, this, and this. And if we do that approach, then we're going to have these problems. And so we have to do it this way. And I was like, I had just finally I didn't explode like angrily, but I pushed back firmly. And he just got once I stopped pushing back, I was like, oh shit. And I just looked up at him and he had the biggest smile on his face. And he was like, now I have the confidence that you are ready to start this project because you have thought through enough to be able to tell me no and why. And I was like, oh, so all these 4 times he was fucking with me. But it wasn't just fucking with me. It was a thought exercise. He wanted to know that I understood the statistical modeling, all the different approaches we were thinking, to be able to say no, yes, and why. And so especially, even if you are a white dude, but especially if you aren't, they're already going to assume you don't know what you're talking about. These skills may not be rewarded right now if you are in a huge venture capital funded technology organization, which I know is getting all the money right now. But they are going to be the skills that we inevitably have to get back to because it's not sustainable to just throw money into things and have no plan. It's not. Do not just tell them that things can go wrong, ask their opinion on it, or come across as you haven't thought it through. But going and pretending nothing's going to go wrong or showing you haven't thought through and what you will do if those circumstances arise, that's expertise. That's strategic thinking. That is risk management.